In the last video, I talked about volts, amps, watts, and ohms, then tried to create an analogy to explain it all. I did try. In this video, I want to discuss things to consider when using your battery system so it can last longer. I'm not an expert, just passing along things I've researched. Always do your own research. For argument's sake, let's say you have a 12-volt lithium power system. You'll most probably have appliances that use 120 volt, the regular household current you plug into a wall outlet. So you'll need an inverter, a device that changes direct current, the energy of your battery, which as I said was 12 volt, into alternating current, the stuff that comes out of a plug in the wall, which is 120 volt. No, not that. This. Now, I'm not going to get into how an inverter does what it does. Not really the point of this video. What's important is you need an inverter that will be powerful enough so you can use whatever item in your RV that needs the most wattage to run. Let me explain. Let's say you have a 1000-watt inverter. This means that your DC battery power can be converted to 1000 watts of AC power for you to use however you want. So if you have a 700-watt microwave, no issues. You've got 1000 watts to play with and are only using 700 watts. But what if it's a hot day, so you want to run your air conditioner? A typical AC unit may need 1500 watts just to start up. Well, you don't have 1500 watts, remember? Your inverter is only good for 1000 watts of power. If you try to run the air conditioning, you'll blow a fuse. You'll need either a generator big enough to run the AC unit or be plugged into shore power to provide the power you need. Now, if you have a 2000-watt inverter, you could run the air conditioning off the battery without having to be plugged in. Of course, you wouldn't really be able to power much else, like a 700-watt microwave, since you would only have 500 watts of power left for everything else. But so it goes. But if you had a 3000-watt inverter, then you would have 1500 watts of power left over with the air conditioning on. So you could run other things, like a microwave that may need 700 watts to run. The point is, you aren't just looking at the battery power like the watts when looking at energy systems. You have to consider how powerful and how efficient your inverter is, and also realize inverters are going to use energy to do what they do, convert DC to AC. Not them. This. Of course, when those inverters are on, they need power. And where do they get that power? From your batteries. The efficiency of that inverter is going to affect how long you can run that air conditioner. Inverters will use power just being turned on and not powering a thing. So be aware of that energy consumption. Once you start powering up something, they will use even more power. If you don't need the inverter on, turn it off. It's an energy vampire. Another consideration is what you're actually powering. Are your appliances all 120 volt? Then that inverter will be on all the time, sucking up power from your battery so it can convert that DC power to AC. This one, not this one. In the case of our embassy, most everything is actually 12 volt, including the air conditioner, so we don't have to have the inverter on when we need to cool down. Our fridge is 12 volt, so no inverter needed there either. And our television is 12 volt too. The only things that need 120 volt power, things that need the inverter on to work, are not the TV, but the TV antenna, which we may not need on if we're streaming. The microwave, which we only need for a few minutes a day, if we use it at all. And the wall plugs, which we only need if we plug something in, which we really only use when we are charging our laptops or our phones, or if we're using our induction cooktop. Why does this matter? Well, let's work it out. Let's say you have a 6,000-watt lithium battery and you aren't connected to shore power, or using some kind of generator or solar panels or whatever. That means when you use power, you'll be draining your batteries. Now, lithium battery systems are going to have some kind of safety factor built in that will not allow you to drain the battery to zero so you don't damage the battery. This means you don't really have 6,000 watts of power. This safety factor could be set at 10, 15, or even 20%. So let's just say you have 5,000 watts of usable power to make the math a little easier. Let's also say you're running your 12-volt AC unit and it needs 700 watts an hour on an average day. That means you can run the AC for about 7 hours, since 5,000 divided by 700 is equal to 7. This assumes you're not using any other power at all, whether 120 volt or not. No microwave cooking, no lights on, no refrigerator running, no phone or laptop charging. All of these use up battery power. But let's face it, you probably will be using some power for these things, maybe 300 watts an hour for the fridge and some lights. That means you're using 1,000 watts total per hour when running the AC. So you can run everything for 5 hours. In other words, we just lost 2 hours of runtime. Now let's say your AC unit is a 120 volt system, not a 12 volt system. So you have to have the inverter on. That inverter may need 100 watts of power to do its job. So you're now using 1,100 watts each hour, which is 4.5 hours of runtime. Another half hour lost. See how that works? The efficiency and power needed for each of the appliances in the inverter matters. And we can go beyond that. What if you're in a less than well-insulated motorhome? That AC has to work harder to keep it cool inside, so it will be running longer each hour, using more watts. So you may need 1,000 watts an hour to run the air conditioner instead of 700 watts. You're now down to just over 3.5 hours of runtime, or half of the original 7 hours we started with. So it isn't just the usable battery power, or the wattage, or efficiency of the inverter and appliances, but the efficiency of the RV itself. This is why in the previous video I said, you don't want to determine how good a power system is by just the volts or amps or total watts it may have. Yeah, what he said. A lot of watts sure does sound great, but if you're wasting a lot of it running inverters or DC to DC converters or high wattage appliances or having to deal with inefficient insulation, that big number shrinks quickly with real-world usage. It's like a powerful boxer that has one hand tied behind their back. They have the power, but it's constrained and inefficiently used. Now for the elephant in the room. The safety of lithium batteries. You know what? I think I'll talk about that in another video. Be seeing you.